and to socialize, to go to concerts, family reunions, right? And having fun and traveling. But for the Christian believer, we have been commissioned by God to actually be outside. You see, when God first created Adam, he put him in the garden that is outside to tend the garden. And basically, God gave us the commandments of be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, create more of what I have given to you, and master it. Subdue means to bring under control. This is your assignment. So I have given you, and you have dominion over places and spaces. That means, and in your assignment. This is what God commanded us to do. Furthermore, being outside as a believer requires us not to just fill the spaces and dominate, but to be different from, because we have a standard. So it's not that we're better than, it's just that we're different from, because we are called as a standard. The standard is being a representation of God our Father. For it says in Genesis, so let us make man in our own image, in our own likeness. That means we should be representing God. We should be loving, patient, kind, humble, graceful, forgiving. When we're getting up in the morning, listen, we should be serving our family members. When we're getting up, we should be loving to them, patient, kind, forgiving. Okay? And we are like him as well. So we should be exuding those characteristics that Jesus exhibited. Jesus was our perfect model. No, we are not perfect. We will, in fact, make mistakes. But again, we are and do have a standard. So let's look at how God wanted you to dominate in the area of your assignment. So I'm going to be reading Genesis 2, 4 through 9. And bear with me just a moment, because this is one of the things where my Bible is actually Genesis chapter 2, 4 through 9. Oh, y'all are so sweet. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Okay, it says, this is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created. Let's go with the New King James Version. This is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, before any plant of the field was in the earth, and before any herb of the field had grown. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain on the earth, and there was no man to till the ground. But a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. The Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground, the Lord God made every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So I want to take us back and say to that verse, and I want you to understand that we have to, this is for my note takers, if you're taking notes, we have to trust God and understand that whatever he gives you is enough to carry out your assignment. Here's the thing. We are not living up to what God has called us to. And one of the things with being a believer, we have to really have a conviction and know that God is calling us to something greater and to something bigger than ourselves. And the main thing that I see is that we're not trusting God, even in myself, because I have to come to this revelation. I'm like, Lord, I'm not trusting you with my speaking ability, with my writing ability, with what you have called me to do. And so in verse 6, it says, a mist went up from the ground. So mist there means tiny water droplets, of course. And I'm asking God, I'm like, in verse 5, you talked about not allowing it to rain. So I'm like, God, why would you talk about rain first? And then you said, you know, you allowed a mist to go up. And so then he just spoke to me. He said, God knew that if it would have rained, it would have produced too much crop for Adam to tend to. So that lets me know that God knows just what to give us, when to give it to us. That means your assignment, God purposed it and put it in you just for you. Okay. And so we have to trust and thank him for allowing the mist to be there, right? So for giving us just what we need. So God has an assignment for you, and he's put it on the inside of you, and he put it inside of you. Whatever you need to start the business, whatever you need to start the career, whatever you need to start over, whatever you need to start writing the book to reach out to the person, you have the contact, you have an idea, you have something that you need to innovate. God is saying, I'm going to give you the mist. I'm going to give you just what you need so you can get started. Because again, if God would have had allowed it to rain, it would have been so much more than Adam could take care of. So I want you to write this down. If God would have allowed it to rain, there would be no help to manage the crop. So God sent what Adam could handle. Don't focus on your inadequacies. You have what you need inside of you. Just start. All right. Second point. Trust God to carry out transformation through you and in you. I'm going to say that again. Trust God to carry out transformation through you and in you. In verse 7, let's go back to the reading. In verse 7, it says, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Think about that. That right there is transformation. Dust. How can dust become a living being? Come on, it's transformation. Your assignment was meant to help and bring transformation to people and to the lives of others. You say, how do you know, Dominique? Other people are called to you and what you have to offer. So who is not getting what they need because of your lack of disobedience, or because of your lack of you not walking in what God has assigned you to manage? What are people not getting? Again, I want you to take this down as a note. The very act of God breathing through dust and dust becoming a living creation is transformation. You say, what's transformation? It is a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance. That's you. That's me. We are meant to be transformed. That means when word comes upon us, when we hear the word, it's supposed to do a work in our lives. We are supposed to have a heart posture to where we are transformed by the word. We are renewed by the word. And that's the work that you are supposed to bring to people's lives. What you have in you is supposed to bring about transformation. You are something special. You are beautifully crafted, baby. Don't let nobody tell you that you can't do anything, that you're too small, you're too short, you're too young, you're too old. Your personality don't fit, it don't match. Okay, it's never been done. Listen, you the blueprint. If it's never been done, a lot of times when something, or we don't see people in spaces and we think of an idea, it's because God has called you to be the blueprint. He has called you to be a catalyst for a movement, a catalyst for an idea. He has called you to innovate and to bring forth what we need in this earth. That's what he means when he says, subdue the earth, right? Don't have dominion, conquer, master it, bring it forth, fill it with your ideas. That's what God has commanded us to do. In Jeremiah 1-5, God says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. That means before he even knew that your mama and your daddy was going to get together, God says, I knew you. I had you in mind before your mom and your dad got together. That's powerful, because what that says to me is that, God, you thought about me even before my parents thought about getting together, which means there's something in me. There's something special about me, about my design, about my purpose that needs to come to this earth and that needs to be brought through me. And so I have to be responsible with that assignment. That's the thing. We have to know that number one, God has given it to us, and we have to be responsible enough to carry it out. We have to be responsible enough to do it. We have to be accountable to God for that very thing that he put down on the inside of you. And God said, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. Consecrate means to declare sacred for a design purpose. Message, you were created for a divine purpose. You were created for a divine purpose. Whatever your assignment is, it may be a book. It may be a course. It may be a lesson. It may be serving where you are well on your job. It may be innovating a process. It may be starting a business. It may be bridging the gap between two groups of people. Whatever it is, God uniquely designed you for a divine purpose. He consecrated you. That's what it says in his word. Next, with all of this, so we're trusting God and we're understanding that he will give us what we need to carry out what we need, right? We're trusting God to carry out transformation through us and in us. But then lastly, we have to trust God to let it grow. Let me say that again. We have to trust God to let it grow. What do I mean by that? In verse 9, it says, and out of the ground, the Lord God made every tree grow. Who made it grow? The Lord God made it grow. That is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life was also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Again, and out of the ground, the Lord God made every tree grow. Whatever is in you, you have to trust God to make it grow. I want you to stop for a minute and think about the things that you've been trying to get to work for yourself, right? The things that you've been trying, or people that you've been trying to maybe